can't just be like, upload an image to this achievement. You have to be like, upload an image to the image system and then get back like a thing that represents that image.
Give me that. Like, what the fuck else would I want
so
that
everything
for?
becomes this like multi-step on Google Play. You can batch upload your achievements if they don't exist yet. Once they exist,
the first time.
Adam was like, so you can do this, but just the first time. I was like, what?
Just once.
Butterscotch.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 527 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Madam the Miscellaneous Programmer.
I'm
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today's June 27th, 2020 vibes. Before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. We'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep the podcast going. So we got a few things to talk about in the studio this week. Well, the big one is we released update 1.2, the Hardcore Scramble for Crashlands 2. So we launched it on Tuesday. It went quite smoothly. And just a couple of little bugs here and there that we missed, but nothing particularly egregious. Response has been good, and we got it out a couple days before the Steam summer sale started. So that way, all the new content would be out and available for the new influx of players, which is now happening. So, we've talked quite a lot about the update, so I don't know if we want to say much more about it, but
it's just nice.
It's cool.
It's out there. It's nice to have it out there, and the response has been very good. So that's kind of, I don't know.
And also,
we'll wait and see.
We made a trailer this time around, so if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check that out.
Check out the trailer.
It's also, we talked about this a lot recently too, about the whole like making marketing content. It's like when you say stuff publicly and then what that stuff is shaped like, and how much we've been trying to avoid certain things and like do it the right way and whatever. And it was so much more fun for an update to an existing game to be like, yeah, the point is describe a list of features, right? Like the here's the set of things.
Tell everybody what's in it.
Yeah, tell everybody what's in it. And it's, who the audience is. It's not people who you're trying to convince to buy it. It's people who already have it, who you're trying to convince it's worth playing again because there's cool stuff, right? And how fast the team was able to put that thing together and how fun it is as a product, because it's got a classic Sam voiceover. It's got an intro with a person's face, because actually like Sam intros it as a human being and then it goes into the actual trailer, it's just a lot more fun of a product to make for marketing purposes. It's
to re-engage with people who you already know are psyched about the game. And you don't have to explain shit. Like the line, one of the lines at the beginning of the trailer is, you could hatch a pew pupa instead of a slugabun. It's like, if you're watching a trailer for the game, nobody knows what the hell that means, right? Yeah. But if you've played the game, then you know, right?
You're talking to people,
Updating games is so much more fun than pre-launch or even launch. Yeah. It's just not even comparable.
There's an interesting note here, though, too, which is like just from my overall business perspective, which is that even on Steam, they recommend that when you launch an update, that you tie it to a sale, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason is because sales are still like the sale triggers for, the game's 20% off. You get notified in your wish list. You can email about it, whatever. Those are the actual ways that you bring new players or players who are interested but haven't played the game yet to essentially view the game, right? For again, or maybe buy it for the first time. But just doing like an update, unless the game itself is essentially big enough, or like maybe like a free to play game or something like that, where there's essentially such a large audience who's already present day to day on the thing, doing an update is not by itself enough to bring new players in, right? Mm-hmm. It's actually, what you're trying to do oftentimes is you do the update where you're trying to change the game in a way that would make it so that someone who does buy it will have a better time, will spend more time with it, right? So you get more players in the long run with this thing, but you can't use it to sell the game specifically. The sale still just does that, right? It is this funny thing where it's like,
I would even say kind of to your earlier point, like if a game is super popular and has a big audience, an update still doesn't move units. Yeah. It brings back players who maybe have lapsed, who like have put it down for a while. But updates, like we were just talking about the Pew Pupa Slugabun thing, from an external perspective, updates are meaningless. Like they don't, you cannot parse why this matters or how it would be exciting. Like
Yeah.
I saw this Warframe that has this new update, Warframe 1999. It looks cool in terms of like the way they've been marketing it in the cinematics. And there's, I guess, motorcycles or something.
Sick.
And there's like people who look like people instead of like weird, messed up alien things. But I have I've played Warframe like 8 years ago or something.
I think when we
saw
played
this trailer.
Warframe, I think it was essentially a different game. Because like the stuff I've heard about it in the intervening years, I'm like, what are you talking about? That is not.
Yeah, because they've been updating it constantly, and I saw this trailer, and I'm like, that looks pretty cool. But the fact that it's a new thing in the game doesn't mean anything to me. All that really is happening is they're marketing the shit out of it, and it keeps popping up.
Well, it's also
And that's why it's at top of mind for me. You know.
Yeah, it's also a case of like depending on the kind of content, right? So because some of it's deep cuts and some of it is stuff where like, yeah, as a person who hasn't played the game yet, you could look at a piece of marketing for an update and be like, cool motorcycle, right? You understand what a fucking motorcycle is.
They might have brought a thing that actually is what hooks you now as a person who like has seen the game before, had decided not to buy it. So yeah, it's is
such
possible.
A deep cut, you know.
Yeah, it is possible for a non-deep cut update content to get people over some threshold of bringing them in. I think that's very rare. I think that happens because it's too hard. It's really hard to make content that substantially changes a game in a way that like gets somebody over some threshold, right?
Opens up a new audience.
Yeah, you'll see that in something like Warframe or these enormous games. Yeah, but I think that's pretty rare. I think I said this thing. I think the biggest thing is you get the visibility boost, right? Because
you got something to talk about. So you make a trailer, you market that thing. If it's cool enough, then maybe like YouTubers make videos about it or press will talk about it, that kind of a thing.
And people who come back to play it talk about it, right? So
yeah, and that's the big thing for us is like we want existing players of Crashlands to continue to be psyched about the game so that they don't shit up about it ever, and that their friends are like, fine, I'll try it. That's kind of the that's kind of the goal. Like this is kind of like how like World of Warcraft did its thing back in the day in like 2004. It just kind of took over, but I think it had like a couple million players in its first 6 months, which is a shitload. But compared to how many people are just like in the world, it's nobody, right? And so there's plenty of room for growth there. And I think they hit like a peak at like 12 million subscribers 5 years later, right? After the launch, because it just kept growing because they just kept adding stuff to the game, and it was like a lifestyle for people. And so people just would talk about it nonstop, and they just like would rope their friends in and they want to play with their friends. So, you can updates keep the existing community engaged and keep them hyped and makes them talk about it. And hopefully over time that like ropes in more people. So we got the 1.2 update out. The new hardcore mode, the new scramble mode are super cool. And those are kinds of things that like let you just keep playing the game. And as we had mentioned before, like it's what allows us to play the game.
Yeah.
Because when we made the game, and as a story game that has predictable, like plot points and locations and stuff like that, you can't really re-experience it if you've made it, if you've made the game. There's no surprises, right? So with Scramble mode, we've been actually able to play it as a game, and like be surprised by it as developers, which is super cool. So yeah, hope everybody has a good time with that. And we're already working on the next update. We literally started working on the next update on Tuesday, the day we released 1.2. And I already have a whole bunch of new juicy things that I'm not going to say anything about
them
for now.
Once they're a little more firm. Yeah.
Once they solidify. And then in terms of industry news, we'll talk a bit about Netflix, which is so some of you who've been following the studio for a while probably know that Crashlands 2 was originally going to be a Netflix exclusive for mobile. It was going to be Netflix exclusive on mobile, and then we were going to separately have it launched on Steam ourselves. And we got dropped by Netflix
November. It was October of last year.
October.
Yeah. So we launched it ourselves on mobile. And around that time, there were like a couple of other games that Netflix was also dropping from their upcoming portfolio. And then they
didn't announce anything though. They just kind of quietly dropped a collection of games. So we didn't know who else was dropped back when we were, but based on the conversation we had with our project manager and the people we knew over there, it was pretty clear it like wasn't about us. So that was all we knew. Was like it wasn't really about like they weren't only dropping Crashlands 2.
They were like, we're going in a different direction.
Yeah, but we didn't know like what does that mean? And it's one of those things where like, you're not supposed to talk about this stuff like, publicly. And so we couldn't go out and be like, hey, we got dropped. Who else did? Like we just had to wait.
And see with everybody else to be like,
until
how many more? You know, how personal is it? Basically.
Yep.
It turned out to be just a strategic shift where they shifted away from essentially like a lot of new IPs, a lot of new games, a lot more like what you'd consider more hardcore gamery games to being more focused on essentially the franchises that are Netflix franchises and game tie-ins to those and just more casual stuff that someone who essentially thinking about along the lines of like someone who subscribes to Netflix who does not play games, like what kind of game would they pick up to play because they watched a show that they really like and wants just sort of more, right? And so they kind of just continued on that trend. And then the surprising one was this week, as far as like surprising to us, I guess, in terms of the intensity of that trend on their side, which is that they dropped like all 3 Monument Valleys, which are, these little mobile gaming
they
gems.
Dropped something like 20 games.
Yeah. Dropped Hades.
Braid,
stuff.
Katana Zero, Rainbow Six. It's like
earlier they dropped crap.
Don't Starve.
Don't Starve, yeah. So just huge indie titles.
And what's interesting about it is like it's you zoom out, they're all gamer games. They're all games that gamers know about, but not anybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what they didn't drop is Grand Theft Auto and Squid Game, right? Like they're not going to drop their own games that they themselves made and funded and all of that through their own IPs. But yeah, so they released some kind of a statement basically saying that they're going to be focusing on mainstream games, which is pretty much just Grand Theft Auto. Or games tied to Netflix IP, multiplayer games, and kid-friendly games. So, which I think I can kind of see the angle, which is they're basically saying like we don't think that we can get people to subscribe to Netflix to play games.
Correct.
We don't think games will attract people to a Netflix subscription, but we think that we can maybe keep people here.
If they've got more stuff
games.
to do.
Yeah, honestly, I think strategically it does make sense. It's just one of those things. It's like it's a very interesting shift from a couple years ago where they're like we want to be like the next thing in games, right? We want to be the Netflix of games, and it's like now it's just Netflix has games, which is a very different vibe. It works.
It's no longer. We're gonna bring the best content. We're going to be the destination for games. It's while you're here, just why don't you play some solitaire?
I think it's more like because I think especially with the show tie-ins, I mean, it makes sense, but it's like it's when if you watch a cool show or a cool movie on Netflix and you're like, man, I just love that, and I want to.
Yeah, you want more.
I want more. Yeah, it's actually a very cool thing to offer, basically a low barrier to entry, essentially game experience, right? That fits with whatever that.
Well, especially if they're, and I'm not sure I haven't played any of their games that are in their IP, but I suspect that either they have a lot of gameplay in them or are basically infinite gameplay because it's the other part too. Right? It's like you run out of you finish Squid Game, right? The show. Yeah. And if you want more Squid Game stuff, like how do you get it? So there's nothing to get, right? But if you can just play a Squid Game, then that's at least something more, even if it has an ending, right? But if it doesn't have an ending, which mobile platforms love, then there you go. Now you can play Squid Game forever. Never forget about it.
Which honestly, and if you're thinking about it from just like a cost benefit side, it's like they have the Squid Game multiplayer game available, and that is doing very well, and it gets a lot of engagement, and it reinforces their IP and stuff like that. It's like it's very safe, I think it's kind of like that, like what Fall Guys or whatever that game was that like really surged.
Yeah, it's just gonna be another battle royale waves.
Kind of you just like a bunch
games.
of people, and you're all trying to do these obstacle courses, and people are getting wrecked by things and stuff violently. And so so like it has the whiff of like another Marvel movie. It's like business people being like, what's a safe place to put our money, right? It's like, well, put it into existing IPs with existing fan bases on an existing platform, like all of that stuff. Yeah. If you want to instead say, we want to become the destination for high quality games, we want to like overtake the market, we want to get all the best games, then suddenly you've got to pony up a lot of cash to a lot of different parties.
And it's going to
on
take
a lot of
and those, I guess,
gambles.
Yeah, and importantly, any of those investments, they don't sort of automatically self-reinforce other stuff that's on the platform, which is why I think honestly,
because like Grand Theft, like they got Grand Theft Auto, right? Yeah. And like if Netflix has Grand Theft Auto and Crashlands 2, does Crashlands 2 do anything compared to Grand Theft Auto? No, it doesn't.
Once you got Grand Theft Auto platform, you might as well not have any other games.
Nothing else. Yeah, once you've got that, then you've got 95% of the possible market capture. And so why the fuck would you drop another?
And that's why the other categories are kids, because kids should not be playing Grand Theft Auto, right? Because like they list the categories
or Squid
that they're focusing on, right?
Yep.
And it's because it's basically they have a carve out that basically just means Grand Theft Auto, which is
just mainstream games.
Yeah, they mean literally Grand Theft Auto. And then the rest is like, okay, well, Grand Theft Auto, there's no point in having games besides Grand Theft Auto once you got it. So the rest of this is just to make sure that people have something to play if they don't like a lot of violence in their video games, right? Mm-hmm. And that's basically it.
Because what they're not going to have is, Clash of Clans, et cetera. Like they're not going to have any of the mainstream mobile games that are already successful in making fuckloads of money because they would have to pay more than what those companies are already making, which is billions a year, right? So they can get like old ports of mainstream games from other platforms, like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which is from the PlayStation 2 era. I mean, it's like 18 years old or something. Or just their own IPs, So
But I wonder too how much, because this is something we talked about in the earlier days too, of like even like when we were working with Netflix, how interesting of a pivot it is to go from on-demand video being your thing, right? Because on-demand video is basically like when it comes to pipelines of content and stuff, right? Like you're not deploying unique pieces of software for every item on your storefront, right? There's a lot, like video is hard to deal with. So you've got a lot of pipeline shit and a lot of stuff that has to happen to like get everything ready to release.
Like, you've solved it for one show.
Extremely standardized.
You've solved it for every show.
Extremely standardized. And then your application, Netflix as an application, has to do one kind of thing extremely well, which is deal with streaming video, right? And so for Netflix, historically, the whole time they've been doing stuff, they had exactly one software product, which was Netflix itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when they moved it to games, it was one of the things I was really curious about. I was like, do they understand what it is that they're doing here? Because each game
these are not the same at all.
Is a bespoke piece of software. There's no standardization in how they're made and how they're localized and how they are managed. They can have bugs in them. Videos cannot have bugs in them, right? Mm-hmm. And the bugs are a bespoke experience, and they are extremely sensitive to hardware specifications. There's like all this stuff that goes on with software. And that's true for the Netflix application too, but they only had just the Netflix application.
It's not true for the content associated with the Netflix application.
So that's one of the things that I've been wondering is like how much of this is as they were like trying to build out this portfolio, because there was a early period where they had a very tiny number of games, but they were like trying to figure it all out. Then there was this kind of big explosions, too grandiose of a term, but there was this big spike, right, which included us coming into the platform. And a bunch of it, they signed a whole bunch of titles. And then I guess 2 years later, year and a half later, something like that, they're suddenly cutting
most of it back.
Yeah. And what I'm wondering is like, there's like the strategic shift of just like what we're trying to do, right? But I wonder how much of that is informed by them being like, oh, fuck, like being responsible for a jillion pieces of bespoke software is not something, because the overhead on that is really high.
It's very high.
Extremely high. And like even from like working with, this is true no matter who your publisher is, like when you're working with a publisher, the amount of like back and forth we had to have with Netflix, be like, oh yeah, we're planning to do this and that, whatever. They're like, okay, when is this going to be ready? Time for do localization. We talk to localization people. We have to get stuff to them in a format that they can use. They have to try to figure out how to use that to get it back to us. And like
for them to be able to evaluate the game, they need skill, which doesn't apply to fit. Like they need to not only be able to like download it and run it on their machine. It has to be optimized, et cetera. They have to be able to play it.
And even if they can play it, they can only have one of the however many experiences your game offers. If it's a game like Crashlands 2, basically infinite experiences.
Everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
All this makes me think of, I don't know if you guys have seen this like joke about, like why do software developers love cooking? Well, it's because when you want to put a carrot in a stew, you don't suddenly find out that carrots are no longer supported by Stew OS 27 and you've got to, it's like you just fucking do the thing and you're done. right? So, and it always works the same. It never breaks.
Or it works the same enough, you know? Because
Yeah,
in the end, even a shitty cookie, still a pretty good cookie.
Well,
Still pretty good.
Speaking of, because I think it's actually it goes nicely into one of the things we've been dealing with internally, which is Adam's working up in the Gadgets division, this the software service that we're putting together for other game devs that is looking to solve a bunch of these platform related problems that we've had, that we have various tools for, kind of consolidate them under one roof. And the first entry point for that we're targeting is basically achievement management problem. And as an example of like this sort of, every thing in a game context being bespoke, right?
And Netflix did have achievements like partway through the process. So Netflix has achievements too. We didn't even touch it because we weren't contractually obligated to, and we were like, fuck no, we're not going to do yet another set of achievements.
Yeah. So, we were putting all this stuff together for the 1.2 update, and we thought, we should actually put a new achievement in there. So if you both to basically just incentivize a really baseline achievement, incentivizing people to do a hardcore run, just one of them, right?
Yeah, a hardcore scramble run.
Hardcore scramble, yeah, because it's like 1,000 points, which can take, I don't know, you just need to survive for like maybe an hour.
In legend mode, I think it's like a half hour.
Yeah,
but because hardcore doesn't even mean hard, right? Because you could play it on chill mode.
Correct.
You can play a hardcore chill save. I think you're like halfway through the game at that point.
Yeah, you have to play a lot more to get those points. But the point is, it's still a fairly accessible achievement.
Yeah, and so we wanted to go add that, and just immediately as soon as we were like, oh, that's the thing we should do, all of us are just like, oh, god damn it, because adding a single achievement to a game, even if you're just on one platform, frankly, it's a huge pain in the ass. But as soon as you're cross-platform, becomes this kind of you remember those logic puzzles that sometimes you did in, elementary school where they're like, Sue can sit next to Steve, but Steve hates Jerry. Put your seating arrangement together based on everyone's preferences. And it's like, that basically is what it ends up coming down to on the achievement side, which is every platform handles them differently. Every platform wants certain things about them to be like, we have a picture. We want an icon for this thing, but the shape of the icon is completely different. They might crop it. They might do all sorts of weird shit. And so if you want to make something that like works across all the platforms, you end up in this just entangled hell. Yeah. And also with a lot of reference,
So for reference, it took about a week to get scramble mode added to the game. And it took about 2 weeks to get the achievement added.
And that's not 2 weeks of work, right? That's 2 weeks of do this, wait for this, do that, wait for that, get this person to do that. Like it's
just a sequential nonstop checklist of back and forth and handoffs and waiting and blah blah blah.
Well, and for us, there's the extra layer of complication, which is we also have Rumpus in play so that we can sync people's achievements across platforms, right? And so stuff has to also go into that system, but there's no
that actually makes it easier.
Yeah, that part makes it easy. Like that part
like on the game side.
Yeah, because that part is easy. But then it's like, so we have to do it on our own platform plus all of the other platforms because you're effectively required by law to put achievements in your games every platform that you're on. So it's just
no achievements, straight to jail.
Yeah.
So I was working on this basically on this achievement manager thing, and what do you say? You got like a 10-page doc about like how to think about them basically, and like tables that show overlap in the feature set and all this other shit, just so you can if you're like, oh, I'm gonna be on iOS and Steam, it's like, okay,
how do you set up your achievements?
Yeah, how do you set up your achievements then? Because you need to have both. You need to have them in the same, you're going to have them on both platforms. So ideally you don't have to do the work 3 times or something because you fucked up and put 112 characters in instead of 100 when it's limited on iOS to 100 or whatever the rules are, right?
44 actually.
44?
Yeah.
For the name.
For the name.
And Steam has no limit on the name of achievements.
Yeah. As far as anybody can tell, there's no limit.
That did this?
It was Cookie Clicker. Cookie Clicker. Because I was Googling, I was trying to find, because I was looking through Steam's docs and they didn't list a limit anywhere that I could find. I couldn't find a limit anywhere for like the lengths of the names and descriptions of achievements. So I'm kind of Googling around elsewhere and discovered a story from like 2 or 3 years ago. The only thing I could find related to limits were people asking if there is a limit and people not knowing, or a bunch of articles about Cookie Clicker because they put up an achievement a few years ago whose name is basically the
two
name
paragraphs.
is like I realize that these don't have a limit, so I want to see how long I can go. And then it just starts like giving some history about something, and then it's basically this like long ass paragraph. And that ends like a little smiley face. It's not clear. As far as we know, that's not the actual limit. I think
This is as far as
they just gave up.
At that point. But yeah, so there's this, if you do play Cookie Clicker, which also, this was how I discovered Cookie Clickers on Steam. I had no idea.
It's on Steam for like $4, and this fucking game has
It's sold a
75,000 reviews.
I mean, Cookie Clicker is fucking good.
Well,
It
and
is the quintessential video game.
it looks like
so.
it's not our grandma's Cookie Clicker, because like we played it in the web browser. A decade ago? Is that how long ago
Yeah,
it
they
was?
juiced it up.
It looks like they've done. I mean, it's still the same game, but they've got like this meta progression. Like there's all kinds of stuff going on in there. And so I was looking at it and I was like, honestly, I'm gonna have to buy this and try it out because
do it.
probably very fun.
Yeah, seeing all the reviews for Cookie Clicker with like 3,000 hours, really makes you think.
You just leave it on,
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But I think it's also
People
funny because I've
played
never,
it
I don't
for 3,000.
recall ever seeing Cookie Clicker show up for me on Steam, like ever. I look at Steam a
Yeah,
lot.
I didn't know it was there.
I didn't
Like,
know it
why
was there.
would
I had
what are you
no-
gonna promote about?
I had no
Cookie
idea.
Clicker?
But this is one
Like,
of those things about fucking visibility of games that's so frustrating, right? Is like, because we talk all the time about how we keep on hearing from people who are like, oh, I didn't know Crashlands 2 was out. All right. Or it's like, we've been everything we
how
can do.
would-
And like, it's been on Steam repeatedly. Like, it's like all the time. Right. And we're like, how is it so possible for so many people to not know? And then I'm over here being like, Cookie Clicker launched 3 years ago and has 75,000 reviews. And I've never seen it.
Yep.
It's impossible. It's a fucking impossible task.
So
Yeah, but anyway, the point is
achievements.
Yeah, achievements are really fucking, and it's like, and it seems easy because like even from a developer experience, if you haven't dealt with them before, or if you kind of dealt with them really quickly and bespokely in a single language on a single platform, it was a bit of tedium that you just kind of did. But especially if it's on one platform, your source of truth is probably that platform, right? As in like, you probably went to Steam.
You don't have to do the squaring problem of like, okay, what are the requirements on both sets? How do I deal with that fact?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you're not like saying that, because if you're doing one language and just Steam, right? Probably what you would do is you would go to the Steam backend, set up your achievements there, make your images, upload them right there, right? And then be done. Because you don't need to take that information and hand it off to like, even to a programmer, because you probably are the programmer, right? So the programmer's like, okay, I'm going to go grab the IDs off of Steam for all these achievements. And now you did that, and now you hook them up and you're done, right? But if you need to collaborate with an artist to make sure like the names of things are correct, so you can like map them back on. If you need to add languages, and that means you need to be able to export and import stuff, so you can get a hold of all of the names and descriptions, map them back onto the IDs that were on there, right? And then of course, if you need to go cross-platform, all that stuff has to be doable with completely different data structures and formats and interfaces and stuff. And so if you're a solo dev making a game on one platform and one language,
Not too bad.
It's just a little tedious, but it's fine. The moment
Take
you
a
go
couple of
one
days of just
step-
kind of making them all and get them all
yeah,
set
it's
up.
still a lot of tedious work, but it feels very manageable because it feels like you can be done. But the moment you're like, oh yeah, now I got to run this through translation, got to have some kind of a doc. You have to have a centralized system basically that's keeping track of all this stuff, so that you can be handing stuff off to the right people and keeping track of when things are done. It's just,
And so we're making that centralized system.
Yeah.
That's going to be part of our SaaS or software as a service.
software as a service. Yeah, we don't know what to call this fucking
so-
platform, because we have
SaaS might be a pretty good name.
yeah, at the
SAS.
moment, SAS is pretty good. At the moment, the sort of core, we want to basically release with 2 features to kind of demonstrate like it's about the whole game development life cycle, right? And so we want to kind of like launch with like 2 features that kind of do that. So one is like the achievements and sort of store page, like description stuff manager, right? For game setup, because we know every time we have to set up a game, especially cross-platform, but even just on one platform
It's
with
the same nightmare problem.
languages,
Getting all your
fucking
screenshots,
nightmare.
all your
Yeah.
languages, knowing as like a couple of examples between like say like achievements and screenshots. It's like some platforms show achievement icons as circles, some as squares. So you need to be able to view your images as both circles and squares to know that they look okay. Some achievements have locked versions of the images, and some require you to upload your own locked versions of the images.
Some
So,
require
you
a
know,
grayscale version of the images, but don't just do it
Yep.
for you. That'd be too hard.
Yeah.
And by
Steam.
some, we
Yep.
mean Steam.
It takes 30% of our money.
Also,
Yep.
by the way, because I was digging into their Steam's API, because I was like kind of reverse engineering their API to figure out how I could do this automatically, and the data that comes back literally says icon and icon gray, right? So it's like, because they have like a recommendation. We're like, we recommend.
They know that you're going to
gray.
make it gray.
It's literally,
they know that.
Yeah.
Well,
Like they
that's
could
required,
just
yeah.
do it. They could just do it for you.
Yeah. And so like we could potentially in this tool, we don't have this at the moment, but something we could do is like we could just make a thing that grayscales your image for you.
That's the
and
plan.
you're
Yeah.
just
The
done.
plan is like,
because it gets worse on every level, actually, the more you dig into it. As an easy example, you go to upload your icon for an achievement, and they're like, oh, it actually needs to be a JPEG instead of a PNG.
Yep.
Like, okay. So you
but
turn
it
it
differs by
JPEG.
platform.
Can our tool convert? Fuck yeah. Well, not yet. But
Yeah,
like,
they would,
like, we
these
could do
backend
that.
tools won't work like on every
And
platform.
if you're on
get fucked.
Steam has a recommended dimensions, but it'll accept a whole bunch of them and then auto scale, right? If you're on,
but it doesn't
platforms,
auto
it's got to be
convert.
exactly the dimension they want, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
nothing auto converts.
Yeah, despite the fact that again, you can. If someone gives you a fucking JPEG, you could just turn it into a PNG or the other way around. You could just do that, but they don't. And so on top of that,
I was like, we don't got the technology for that. Sorry.
Yeah, on top of that, they'd be like, you go upload. Okay, I changed it to a JPEG. Upload it, and they're like, oh, sorry, it needs to be under like 150.
There's also size limits. Yep.
But they don't tell you that until you fuck it up. So you're just doing this like you're just stuck in this loop of like learning while failing, but not.
So what we want for our tool is basically like you go, all right, I want to make an achievement for my game, right? And so you just say what the name of the achievement's going to be, and then your description, and then the icon.
You did it now.
And then
good job.
You did it. Yep. And then the tool would be like, okay, for you to upload this to Steam, here's the package. Like here's the zip file that contains all the converted stuff with all the necessary things. And
JPEG's auto crunched. Everything will go.
Everything will just send it.
Yeah.
Ideally, actually, you could just go over to Steam and have a little extension in your browser. That's just like
it does it for you. Yeah. Which is phase 2.
Yeah, phase 2.
So if you got an account through our SaaS system, you set up your achievements. If I can go to your Steam page, you installed our SaaS plugin thing in your Chrome as a Chrome extension. You just click that thing, hit sync, and it'll just sync everything over from our system.
And you might be
to your
wondering,
Steam backend.
why couldn't I just be in that interface and just hit sync right there and have that work? Well, it's because Steam doesn't have any fucking APIs. So because that's the other part of all this is like none of them
have APIs.
So actually,
for store management,
for store management,
they have a lot of it for like uploading
Steam
builds.
Actually,
and stuff,
specifically, has no APIs. The other platforms do, but they're insane. They're completely insane.
Yeah, there's always weird, like just strange limitations and stuff.
As an example, because I'm not going to get like really into it, but as an example, for Apple's APIs, and this isn't just for like achievements, but anything that requires an image for like all your store stuff, they've got APIs for all this stuff. But the way that you post an image is you upload it first, like through their API, right? To get like a kind of a token that's like, yes, I did successfully upload this image. And then you like get that, and then you attach that thing that you just you attach the thing you got back to the thing you needed an image for, right? You can't just be like upload an image to this achievement. You have to be like upload an image to the image system, and then get back like a thing that represents that image.
Give me that, because what the fuck else would I want that
it's
for?
It's so fucking weird. And so everything becomes this like multi-standard on Google Play. You can batch upload your achievements if they don't exist yet. Once they exist,
the first time.
Yeah, the first time. Once they exist,
Adam
you
dropped
can't
that
update
bomb on
them.
us on like on
You can't batch
Monday.
update them.
Yeah.
Yep. Adam was like, so you can do this, but just the first time. I was like,
Just
what?
once.
And at least on Google Play, you can't update just like one data field. You can't be like, oh, I want to update the name of this, right? You have to replace the entire data structure, meaning like you have to then first know everything, every language it's in and what the translations are. You have to know everything first. And then get that huge thing of data, make the one change you want, and then re-upload the whole ass thing. Because it doesn't have like
The thing is, Adam, the thing is,
it's so
Google
insane.
is famously bad at handling data.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really know how to do it or where to put it.
That's
or
why they
how
need
it
these
works.
AIs to help them out.
I would say at least Steam
jobs.
at least has been doing a bit more things on some of their. They've been making some adjustments to their to the APIs total, but they added finance APIs like yesterday.
Yeah, they just announced a finance API, so you could finally query your financials.
Yeah, they did add some
Without-
like image asset management stuff. I think like 2 weeks ago or something. I haven't actually.
Okay, so
I
they're
think you
dealing.
looked at it. I can remember. They're doing some stuff, but like
Stuff. Well, because that's the other part too. Like when it comes to localization, it's the same deal. But on Steam, like each of the different systems, like achievements versus a store page, whatever, has its own localization like concept. So there's like a download button somewhere you can download it. They're in different fucking formats at each place, like completely
they're just
different.
wilding out over there.
There's just
The
everything is-
Steam backend has evolved like an eldritch horror. It's
insane.
just
And then-
tentacles and
and then something but we were really pumped because it's like the one platform where at least they have that, you know, like there's a way to download
they are
it.
evolving it. The other platforms are just kind of chilling, really.
Yeah, it's like do it one at a time through their interface or figure out their insane APIs, right? But with the last thing we discovered in for Steam is when we were dealing with the badge system.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
I almost died.
it's another separate system, and it's insane for a bunch of reasons. But then for localization of, which is again, it's a bunch of names of things. It's like it's not very interesting, right? So they've got like a loc, but there's like download for loc, right? And you can get a little file, get it translated. It includes everything except for one of the things. There's one of the things that's just not in there. But on the same page, it's the
badge
badges system. Yeah, one of the badges just isn't in
don't
there.
put it in.
But they just don't put it in there.
Stop. Love it.
And so then you have to manually deal with that one, right? But like the rest. So this is what all of these are like. And so we deal with this every time we have to set up a new game, every time we want to add a new achievement.
That whole system, I made the art for it. And then it was like, it was a couple of days. So it was like, I had Ann do the art stuff for it, right? So we made new badge icons. We made cool trading card stuff. You have to upload those, right? But then, and go through like a little review process where they tell you did it wrong.
Yeah, it also goes through review, yep.
And then in order to like finish them, it took, I think it was like 5 hours of like fighting this interface because of all of these, like all of this insane ways in which this thing works, where it's hiding information from you until you fuck something up. I uploaded like backgrounds for the trading cards, which no one really cares about or sees anyways, but like you have to do it. Upload these things and it doesn't say anything. It looks like it works. Cool. And then it's like, you need to upload an image to this thing, in another interface. I'm like, what do you mean? I already did. And it turns out that it's like silently just failing in the background because it was a wrong size JPEG, but it doesn't tell you. It's just, the whole thing is just so damn annoying that it's just like, oh my God. It's just,
it's like anytime we're dealing with store stuff is a time where we get particularly mad about 30% store cuts because
yes,
we're like,
because what are we paying
as
for?
much money? You're literally truncating the potential lifetime of our studio, the number of people we can employ, all that kind of stuff by literally half.
The fee we pay Steam is higher than the corporate tax rate.
Because we would have 50% more basically if they weren't taking 30% because percentages are weird, right? So they're taking this huge fraction of our potential income. And then they're like, yeah, here's our janky ass store that you can't tell what's happening and it wastes all your fucking time. We have an entire...
Which again, no disrespect to Steam because it is the best. It is the best one.
But it's not great at all. So this thing's like,
it's still bad.
We'll start billing them, We should be like, look, it took our team of people who, again, been doing this for a long time. We're not dummies. We have all the skills in-house. You know what I mean? Took like 4 days to put together these fucking trading cards and badges and stuff for you guys. So we're just gonna bill you for the time, Because
that'd be nice.
It's for you. It's for the platform, really, at the end of the day. So
I
be careful though, because there was that one guy who sent Google a bunch of bills and they just paid him, and then later they sued him for fraud. So be careful sending bills to companies because they have a lot of automated systems. They don't got anybody checking that shit. They'll just pay you.
There are a lot of arguments for reducing a store cut, but I think reducing it at the beginning is important for a bunch of reasons. Because if you're not making as much money, that money for a developer makes a huge difference, right? That extra little bit, but also the amount of bullshit that a developer or a publisher has to do just to get the game onto the platform is so high. And it's just part of, because like you already pay a platform fee, which is negligible actually in the grand scheme of things. It's like by the time you add in all of your time to actually deal with the store, that didn't even count. It wasn't even a thing you did, right? It's hours and especially because there's also the research component of being like, oh yeah, Steam has a keyword system. Like, how does that work? What should I be putting in here? Right. Steam has a tag system. How do I optimize that? Because anything you don't optimize results in a lower percentage of sales. Significant.
Will be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And So you don't. So every single one of these has this.
You can't do anything right, but you can do it wrong.
Exactly.
You know,
And then it's all distributed across like so many pages. Because even like like going into any store and being like, okay, I know this thing has like a search term keyword thing. Where is that? It sometimes takes me 15 minutes of navigating a UI just to like find that fucking thing because things are so. Yeah, it's just. So much.
So our
long
goal
story
here
short,
with
we spend so many hours across our team dealing with all of this stuff. Just the administrative part of it, not even like writing the fucking copy and making the hard assets, right? Almost any amount of inslickification of that would save us every time we like have to do an update or stand up a store page would save us probably a dozen hours of time.
We're here to cure some headaches, you know.
Yeah.
That's what
we want to chop that time in half. We want to chop it by 75%, you know, so that as a developer, if you're like, I want to put achievements in my game, you don't need to go look up all the specs. You don't need to go look up all this shit. You don't need to try to figure out how to navigate all these things. You just
go to Bscotch's Games as a Service.com.org and then plug your achievements in. We don't have a name yet. We're working on that. You say, I'm going to set up my achievements. You upload your fucking image, your name, whatever. And then it's like, here, we've set everything up for you. Just sync it to your Steam store page and then go to bed. And then you
fucking
just sleep.
Yeah,
you're done.
That's
the dream. Oh, what a dream. What a dream.
But I will say,
you guys want to get to a question?
Yeah, the last bit I would say, there's having been designed this thing, like the moment you add, because I always make stuff for ourselves, you know, for our own team. The moment you need to support more than one team, Jesus, it is such
a little complicated.
It gets complicated so fast. So no idea when this is coming.
The initial setup of like user permissions, organizations, teams, bucket information, security, billing, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to take some time to get this thing off the ground because just having it, it's like a game jam versus a commercial game, right?
Yeah,
it's like, you can have a game made in a weekend, but then to sell it, it takes 6 months. So all right, we got a pretty good question. That's the one that I wanted to get to. Highest upvoted question from podcast.bscotch.net comes from Calzoncillos, who says, "Hi guys, I'm listening to both your latest episodes and your first ones, and it's quite interesting to jump back and forth between you being almost ready to launch Crashlands 1 and then 2. Because we did start the podcast in 2015 summer, so about 6 months before we launched Crashlands. How does it feel now compared to back then? Also, at the end of episode 27 in November of 2015, Sam was saying that his cancer diagnosis made him see life differently and he started giving zero fucks about unimportant things. Did he ever lose that clarity of perspective, or is it still with him? How did he maintain it if so?"
Let's do the first question first, and then we'll hit that one.
So the first one is just, how did it feel to launch Crashlands 2 compared to Crashlands 1? I'd say there's a ratcheting
everything
expectation and cost and stuff like that. So with Crashlands 1, even if it had been like, I don't know, maybe 1/8 as successful, it still would have blown everything else we had done out of the water, and we would have been absolutely ecstatic.
Even if we had to stop the studio, because like if it was much less successful than it was, we would have been able to continue probably. But we didn't really have expectations that we could keep doing this, you know? Like at that
we were
time.
just doing it. Yeah,
we're just trying to.
Now that we've been doing it for quite a while, we're entrenched. We've got employees. We're supporting people. We got payroll. We've got all kinds of connections. We got like 8 or 9 people full time, depending on time of project.
The bigger the team, the more you need a thing to do really well, right? Just sort of hard business reality of stuff. And so it carves away that sort of the pureness of just being like, we have nothing, so anything would be great.
It's no longer, it would be so cool if this goes well. Yeah. And now it's, if this goes poorly,
we're toast.
We're fucked.
A whole bunch of people's livelihoods change, right? Yeah,
which is a very different vibe. It also means that most outcomes will be neutral or disappointing.
Correct.
And rarely it'll be super, super great. And so, which isn't to say that because Crashlands 2, like we're just going through the financials of it. And like it is blowing Crashlands 1 out of the water.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but also our expenses are literally 50 times higher than they were.
Our expenses are a lot higher.
We weren't paying ourselves. It took 2 years instead of 5.
So when you go from zero expectations to you need to support like 9 people full time for 5 years off of the money, it's a very different metric. And so So it's kind of it's something that I've personally been grappling with of like, objectively, it's doing great.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but feel a little bit bummed that it's not doing incredible, you know?
There's a bit of a never enough problem, I think, as your scale goes up. Yeah, because really at the end of the day, I think what you want on the dev side, on the creator side, is just some safety, like a sense of, at least that's what we've been wanting for a while now, which is like that we don't have to be so, I don't know, like so tightly coupled with all of the problems we have, where we feel like we really need to fucking nail any one of them super efficiently because, you know, the end is visible. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you could see it.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Well, and stuff like we always say like, oh, we got to launch on as many platforms as possible, as many languages as possible, to roll the dice as many times as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we're still rolling dice.
Yeah.
You know, like I saw a trailer for Super Meat Boy 3D. I don't know if you guys saw this. Super Meat Boy 3D is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all they fucking have to do is launch that thing on Steam in English.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they'll make $20 million. No problem. You know, they don't. There's a certain threshold where you just aren't rolling dice anymore. You're just printing money.
Right.
And so
but also once you hit that's the kind of paradox, right? Because once you hit that threshold, then the extra 5% here, 10% there, 2% here that you get from like adding max
is massive, but also unimportant.
but it's massive though, because like once you hit the absolute scale where it's like, yeah, doing this will add $1 million, then you're gonna do it, even if it's a small fraction of your overall thing, right? When you're gambling on it,
and you get locked in because like why did it take so long to get Super Meat Boy 3D? You know, it's because Super Meat Boy did so good that now like the threshold. Yeah, you don't need to do anything. There's no pressure. And so I also kind of understand that like if we make a game that gets us off the treadmill, so to speak, without the pressure to be always producing, I think you can fall into a trap, you know, like
there's traps everywhere, but I think it's not really so much a trap so much as it is like, it's just like, it's a shifted context where you move into exploitation of a thing as opposed to like just trying to explore the space enough that you have something that's worth exploiting, right? Like it is a different phase, but I think
it's like gambling versus leveraging, right? It's like
yes. Yeah. Do you have an asset that you can actually do stuff with? Yeah. Or are you trying to get an asset in the first place? Yeah. And so I think it has been the case that that is definitely the field difference. It's like there's more riding on the success of something like Crashlands 2, right? And not just for us, but like just like Seth was saying, because we have more people in the process, because there's more support there. And so I think we were very happy with the launch. It launched way better than anything we made before, right? But at the same time, because we know also where the ceiling is, which is to say like 10x, 20x what we did manage to pull off, then there's always that sense of like fuck, you can't get it. If you doubled it, oh my God, that would have been an incredible launch, right? But we didn't double like before it is, So it's like,
it's also a crazy industry because 2xing something is a small change, actually, right? It's a small, in terms of like in terms of the scale of things that can happen, because it's one of those like a slight shift in the visibility system of something can literally 2x sales, right? Yeah. Like that's the range of things that can actually happen, and so that's part of that frustration too. It's like because games aren't trying to eke out an extra like 10% here and there, right? Necessarily.
That's not how you go from.
That's not how you go from okay to successful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're trying to get that. Like, here's the thing, and that's where having a whole other giant platform later on, like that's where you get that potential. Because like we're talking about original Crashlands, basically made a third of its income on all the 3 platforms that we were on to start, right? Mm-hmm. So in essence, each one doubled or 50%ed the revenue we're making, right? Like you're looking for things like that. Because unless you have a blockbuster hit, like that's because it's so expensive to add that next thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think like Stardew Valley is probably a pretty good example where like it launched at the same time as Crashlands, like I think a month later. Mm-hmm. When did Stardew Valley multiplayer come out? Like 5 years later?
It was 2 years later, maybe. Yeah, it was a couple of years.
2 years later. Yeah. And like let's say Crashlands 2 did Stardew Valley numbers. We'd probably be looking into multiplayer.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because I think they did. It was either 20 or 40 times better than we did.
It was at least 20x, like around the launch window. Which is again, this is what we're talking about. Like this, like you got this log scale change in potential success, and it means a very different thing than for the studio, right? And so our goal with Crashlands 2 is produce
Where
a game.
you can just do stuff that sounds cool. Players are like, oh, I would like multiplayer. And you're like, yeah, it's going to take us 2 years and we can't do anything else in the meantime. And
But that's fine. Bills are paid. So
we don't know if it's even going to be any good. But at the same time, we got so much money in the bank. We can just do it for fun. You know?
Yeah. And so I think there's that. I think that's just the biggest difference. Right. And one of the weirdest parts of it is the external landscape. So not even on the platforms, but like the external attention landscape has shifted so much.
Oh my God.
In the last decade that like it's been a weird thing to think about with Crashlands 2's launch because we were pretty annoyed with just like not getting like much engagement on like the YouTuber or the Twitch side, and even like traditional press side. We got some really great articles from people, right? But again, comparatively, if we're looking at just like raw numbers of how many YouTube views did like original Crashlands get its first week? Millions, right? Multiple millions, like 2 to 4 million, something like that. Crashlands 2 around like 100,000.
Yep. It was tens of thousands, basically.
People just weren't making videos about it.
So, and it's like, but it's weird because like, again, we're looking at the data on the back end and we could see like Crashlands 2's, again, the sell-through is great. It's better than the original one. But importantly, the game's design is literally produced like 2x median playtime at least, right? And so it's like,
and our review scores are better than Crashlands 1's were at launch. Crashlands 1's reviews got better over time as we like over the first year basically added some substantial updates to it. But even then, it wasn't until fairly recent that it started to like, it's been like slowly creeping up for some weird reason.
I think it's because of the huge sales we've done where it's super cheap.
Yeah,
probably. People are less,
somebody buys a game for 99 cents.
Low expectations.
Low expectations, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been this weird, like, I think that's been some of the parts that's been hard to wrap your head around, which is like, okay, so you make a game that is quite literally twice as good, right? In terms of by some of these metrics that we're looking at. So in our case, that whole like median playtime metric, twice as good as the original, but you get one like 50th the viewership in the first week on like YouTube or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there's enough of those pieces in the whole launch picture for us that have made it weirder to think about than I think we maybe anticipated, where it felt like either you'd be like, it's a clean win or a clean, like, not like clean failure. Well, right? I think, and it's just like really fucking dirty.
In my mind, it comes down to like, I feel like we've gotten better at making games up like measurably in terms of our review scores and like how engaging they are for players and stuff like that. Which is reflected across all of our playtime metrics and all of our review scores and all the different platforms. We have not gotten any better at marketing, and maybe we've even gotten worse at marketing as the years have gone by.
Or at least we haven't adapted to how things are changing. But, either
so we have,
it's all gotten harder and we've stayed basically the same, right? Or we've gotten worse, whatever it is. But it's harder to sell games.
Yeah,
a lot harder.
And we are not getting better at a rate that
is sufficient.
Right. Yeah. And so it's just something we need to figure out is how do we, and like for me personally, I'm pretty allergic to like social media and TikTok and stuff like that. Just the like the constant engagement bait kind of stuff of all these different platforms. I hate it so much. But at the same time, it's like, I know like that's where people spend 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
Yep.
And so, maybe we got to figure that out. Maybe we got to figure out how to like have more of a presence there. I don't know what it is.
Or making a game that's more engageable through those mediums, right? Which is something we talked about post launch. But like, I think it's a really weird, mixed bag of stuff. Like for everything where we're like, wow, we fucking killed it on X, Y, or Z. There's these holes, right, in the overall launch picture where we're like, what the fuck is that about? I felt like we pulled all the levers we know how to pull. We paid people even to like do things, for marketing or whatever. And it's like, what the fuck is that about?
Well, that's the other part too. As we've gotten better at figuring out how to like reason about or even measure the impact of something that we try to do, right? It's that repeated discovery that like there's so few things that we can do that aren't just like a time or money hole, right? That could lead to something. And every time we're like, well, what about this thing? Like, everybody's doing this thing. Let's try this thing, right? And we come up with a way that we can do it so it's fairly measurable. And it comes back and it's like, yep, that's a net loss, right? Just over and over and over again, we just keep on like seeing this for everything. And it leaves this question is like, there's like, what levers are there? There's just like none that remain, right? So I know like for me, the launch was, relative to original Crashlands. Original Crashlands was like a fever dream, like we worked ourselves to death to get it launched. And then
quite close.
And then for the next 6 months, we were
We just
continuing.
still did that.
So we continued to do that. So but also it was so exciting because it's our first Steam game, right? Later our first Switch game, and like all this, like it was so monumental in its position in our trajectory. It was also the thing that meant like maybe we could do this as a living, right? At the time that I was doing it, I wasn't even planning on staying in games, right? And then it was the thing I was like, oh yeah, like maybe this actually could support all of us, right? Rather than just being like something cool that is a huge game that may or may not work, right? Yeah. So there were so many just monumental things that the Crashlands 1 launch did. And at that time too, the indie scene was just like so huge and so interesting and so robust. It
was very hopeful.
And very hopeful,
optimistic.
And so like when we would go to like GDC and stuff, like so many people had played Crashlands and knew about it, right? So it gave us the sense of
more people had played Flop Rocket.
Well, there's always that, but at GDC that wasn't true. Like at GDC, like it was still like what we heard from most was people playing Crashlands, right? And so it gave us the sense of like, oh yeah, we can like carve out a space, in the industry and like make this work. And so much great stuff came out of Crashlands 1. As Sam's been saying, Crashlands 2 like had to demonstrate that all of that is true, because if it's not, we're toast, right? And so and it basically gave us like, yeah, that's more or less true. Like that was kind of the outcome, right? Which is
we're good. We can keep going.
Yeah, which is like fine, but for me,
it's never going to be as much of a paradigm shift.
It can't be.
Yeah. Because Crashlands 1, like I was saying, Crashlands 1 changed everything.
Yeah.
The only way for Crashlands 2 to change everything would be for it to, bring in like $30 million.
Well, that's the thing it could have. It didn't, right? It could have. And once it didn't, it was like, okay, because to me, it was like the big sort of negative vibe of the experience was like, Crashlands 2 was a thing that we thought we could do that could change everything again, right? And it didn't. It wasn't bad by any stretch, but it didn't change everything again, right? And now when I'm looking out at the future and like how hard it was in 2025 to launch a game, right? And I'm looking ahead, I'm like, okay, well, Crashlands 2 was like the thing that I knew. It was like, that was the thing that I could think of so many reasons why that could be the thing that changed everything. And then when it didn't, the question is, what's next?
Yeah.
Is
like
there,
what else could you do?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is that. Once you're done with a project and then having to decide what to do next.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to feel the same degree of optimism I have post Crashlands 2.
Yeah.
As I did.
As post Crashlands 1.
Because post Crashlands 1, I was like, yeah, we can do anything. We can make any game. We can figure it out, whatever. Post Crashlands 2, I'm like, holy shit, it was so hard to make Crashlands 2 successful. And it had everything going for it.
Yeah, which again, what does that mean? Objectively, by all measures, like it did way better than Crashlands. But because the studio's bigger, because it took longer to make, because of these weird things, it's like demonstrating that we maybe kind of suck at marketing a little bit. We got to figure that out.
It's just like, I think the other zoom out thing is like just recognizing that the shape of games that can be massively successful has changed a lot in the last little bit. Yeah. And so, again, and we didn't design, Crashlands 2 is not designed to be like an engageable thing if someone's streaming it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not
it was designed. We talk about how it was designed with a kind of a marketing first approach, but that was within the constraints of it being Crashlands 2, right? Yeah, and that was about, as you're saying, the appearance of it, because that's right. Once you're already within the confines of Crashlands 2 as a design principle, that means we're not designing for marketability. We're just like, this thing has to be marketable within its design, right?
Yeah. And so
can we design for marketability? I don't know, but like.
Well, we definitely can, but like to me, it's like we got really allergic to, in the mobile space, designing for free to play monetization, right?
Yep.
Like the idea that you have to be basically you have to really be thinking about how all of that works within the context of the game's design. It's just really annoying because it kind of gums up the game, right? But I think similarly, where things have headed on just broadly is like, if you're not at some level considering just asking like, you don't have to build things for engageability necessarily, but like just thinking about it from a design perspective of how it is that when someone's streaming this game, how would their audience be able to be enjoying it with them, right? Why would a YouTuber pick it up and carry it for X number of videos or whatever else? If you don't at least have like some answers to that or some shaping of the core design of the thing, then I think nowadays it's like, it's kind of like not designing for free to play in mind, but then launching a free game. Does that make sense? Where it's like the market.
Well, I think And I think you're right. I think it's that basically we didn't appreciate how far those things had shifted.
Correct. Yes, that's definitely
so that we still thought that like if you can just make like a really good game, it's got a good backstory, it's got a prequel that is beloved, right? That if you do all of those things, that you could at least kind of recapture the level of visibility you got for that thing, right? But
honestly,
the people who at that time actually because even at that time it was still hard. It was very hard to get covered, right?
Hard.
The people who covered it were variety streamers, right?
Most of them don't exist anymore.
Yeah, you know it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, variety streamers.
None of them make
almost
YouTube
none of them
videos
exist
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, all the
I gotta
algorithms
say,
and all the
though,
platforms have pushed those systems out, and I think again we just didn't realize that it was from whatever it was to basically zero, and that does change what we have to do, I think, for future titles.
As an interesting note, so Baldur's Gate is now my most played game on Steam. Baldur's Gate 3. And I picked it up. There's two things that pushed me to pick it up. One was, I think it was like in the WoW subreddits, people started like posting pictures of the character creator where they were like making characters from WoW lore. Like, I made Sylvanas in the Baldur's Gate. I was like, what the fuck is this game? But that didn't really, the only thing that popped out to me was that there were like 24 posts about just doing this. I was like, what is everybody playing this game all of a sudden? So it just kind of like stuck in my mind, but I didn't buy it at that point. And then all of a sudden there were a bunch of articles about how you can have sex with a bear.
Yep. I remember that was like a week pre-launch or something like that. They were talking.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, this is not really what I'm interested in, but it is interesting.
Yeah. The game supports that. What else could I do?
The framing of it was, this game is full of so many unhinged kind of surprises and moments that it just is intriguing enough. And like, I think I gotta see what's going on over here, you know? Right. So I picked it up with no idea about Baldur's Gate franchise other than that it is a franchise. I didn't actually know it was a D&D game until I bought it. And all that stuff. And it really was like the fact that they put something in there that was so remarkable in the sense that people remarked on it, which is you can fuck a bear. That's weirdly what, and that's what got me into the game.
Yeah. And I think you have to design for that in a lot of ways, right? Nowadays, I think.
Well, if you look at all the weird indie hits and stuff for the past few years, like all of them are like, there's something you could say very quickly that's remarkable, right? That makes you want to be like, the fuck? Like, what is going on here? And then if you think about really any of our games, but in particular Crashlands, like Crashlands was designed to be a really good game. That's like what it's for, right? But
it's not controversial.
Well, it's not even that it's not controversial. There's nothing that you can punctually say about it, you know? There's nothing. There's nothing. Because it's got a lot of really good game that's great to play. And it could be one of the best gaming play experiences that you have, but not where we can be like, hey, in this game, this happens in a way that you understand what we mean, that like conveys something to you and makes you want to go get it, you know? The
challenge of doing like a bunch of alien sci-fi shit is it's like kind of hard to, outside of just being like, it's alien sci-fi stuff, which can work, you know? But if you want to explain something, it's kind of hard to explain it in a way that works and it's punchy. So I think that,
but it's even like the weird stuff to do on top of it. Like, what is it? Because if you look at, there's like games like these various horror games and stuff where they're like, oh yeah, we added arachnophobia mode, and it just has the word spider shows up instead of the actual spider, which like that's the kind of thing I can't remember what even game that was, but like it was for a game that at the time I didn't really know about, and all of a sudden I just saw that everywhere. Right? What's the equivalent that you put into like a long form RPG? That's right. Like
that has just like all aliens. Like what?
Yeah, like exactly. There's just now the same degree of like opportunity for something that instantly grokkable in a complete fucking vacuum, right? Where that makes you like be like, what is this? I got to go experience.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of my personal interest in like on the art side and for whatever we're doing future wise is oriented around like more understandable theming of stuff, or like pulling from things that people understand in a way that's a little bit not so broad and vague where it's like aliens, but like, you know, specifics that people are like, oh wow, that would be like.
Well, I think it's less about like understandable understandability as a concept, though that is like a core element of it, as it is like, how do you create context-free surprise, right? Right. How do you make it so that you can give somebody no context and then tell them something
It's by leveraging things people know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like the core way you do it is by leveraging stuff that people know, so after you can break that in some way. Understandable.
I mean, after the Luigi incident, I came to the team. I had a thought for a game on that topic, and I was like, people would talk about this if we made it.
Yeah.
I still don't know if we should make it, but people would talk about it.
Yeah, so I think it's
gotta want to.
That's like kind of been, I guess, the difference between the two launches is like Crashlands 1 was sort of very pure in the sense that we had nowhere to go but up, really, because we didn't have anything. So it's very different.
Yeah, once you can go down, then things change.
And especially once you again when you notice there's shapes of things that in here that we still just don't have a grip on. That can be kind of frustrating, especially after so long in the business. And then to the second question, which I'll just kind of wrap up relatively quick.
Do you give a fuck?
Do you give a fuck? Yeah. I care a lot about making sure that all my people are going to be fine, if that makes sense. So Adam and Seth here, extended family, my wife, my 2 babies. I care a lot about making sure that they're all going to be fine, sort of regardless of my status, if that tracks, right? So if anything bad happens to me, that we've set up stuff enough that it's good to go. So I care a lot about that. I've had a very hard time, especially in the last, I would say part of it was the optimism I think generated by launching the original game that was paired with then my, cancer being cured literally like the month prior. I had a
very hopeful time.
It was a very hopeful time. I spent a lot of time sharing stuff with people, giving talks.
Barack Obama was still president.
Trying to
it was a different time.
Yeah, trying to I don't know, share what felt like some of those important things that I had gotten from it. And I said a lot. And the thing was I don't know, after saying all of it, I was like, yeah, I said it. And I haven't felt the need to share much basically at all in the last, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years in terms of I used to want to write articles for people about how to do art stuff kind of similar to what we're doing. I wanted to, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I just don't, I don't know. There's something about it where I don't care about that aspect of things, but I don't know. I can't put my finger exactly on why, because it is important. But I think I
think part of what I saw externally with you and Seth both, but Sam, you in particular, is the repeated sort of because when you were making those things, you were making them for that audience. You weren't making it for yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
To that then as a sort of incidentally is then also for other people, right? You were truly making it for other people. And there were so many of those things where you did it and then just you hear nothing, right? Or it seems it seems like it didn't matter when you made it for other people, right?
Yes.
That for me externally, I just felt like I watched you kind of get burnt out from
I think
hey, I made this for you, and everyone's like, so fucking what?
Well, right? Again, it comes back to expectations, right? Of is this gonna matter? Is it gonna change things? And something that kind of back to the social media side of things, something that drives me insane is if let's say you come across a YouTube video about something, maybe about finance, maybe about weight loss, maybe about game dev, or just something that's kind of hard, right? You see it's well put together. It's a good 15-minute breakdown of how to do this thing or how to think about this thing. You're like, cool, I'll subscribe to this person, see what else they make. And then, the next day another video comes out. It's basically the same fucking video. It's just repackaged in a different way, right? And then the next day, same video. The next day, same video. And what I've kind of found with so many of these things, and even like Chris Zukowski with all of his how to market your game stuff, right? This dude's putting out articles and newsletters and blah blah, and it's largely repeating the same main several points in from a bunch of different perspectives and angles, just over and over and over and over and over again. Because people's attention is so transient due to the way that people consume media with through digital stuff, is if they don't see the thing that you sent out there in the moment you sent it, they will never see it. And so you've got to send it out again and again and again and again and again. And so there's this kind of feeling that why even bother fucking saying anything now? Because if I don't say it 3,000 times, it's as if I never said it. So if I'm not willing to not just give a talk, but give a talk, slice it up into 400 TikTok videos, give the same talk again the next month, slice it up again, keep uploading it, keep doing it over and over again. If I have a message to get out or something I want to say, if saying it is a full-time job, then I'm just going to shut up and just do my own thing.
There's definitely a bit of that. I think there's like there's some burnout. I definitely, Adam, to your point, I definitely had some burnout on just like, it wasn't really just being disappointed in like the response that I got from stuff so much as just like, it was a combo of, there were a few big highlights post Crashlands launch in terms of like talking about stuff, like the GDC talk I gave and whatever else, that were very important to me and like were, big moments.
Really
of like
well
being
received and meaningful
it was
to
all,
people.
again, all very much aligned in terms of that idea, right? But still, it's like, it's a combo that I'd been like, well, I already said the thing that I wanted to say.
But it's also, you had to literally like get cancer and talk about that to have that impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah. So it's like, okay.
It's like the most extreme possible example of like, yeah, it's all aligned. And then, and to me, that's actually part of like the games part too. It's like, there's so much stuff that we do that we know matters. We know matters to other people, right? But if it's just regular everyday mattering, nope, you can't even tell people. It's literally impossible, right?
Yeah, and even like I was meeting with one of my dev friends yesterday, and he's been poking around with Spine, trying to figure out how to put some assets together for a project he's working on. And he was like, he's like, I know you're using it, but I don't know how you're using it. And he's like he's a tech director, like in a game studio, right? He's like, can you show me like, how are you putting like Flux together? How does this work?
Oh God.
Yeah. And I was like,
the monkey's paw curls.
Yeah. I showed him and he was like, oh, it's like, cause it's a different way of thinking about how to use that particular tool set.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, he's like, okay, I understand. He's like, oh, that's fucking clever. Like that's a really good way of doing it that you guys figured out how to do. Very efficient, right? Very economical for having like one fucking artist around. But it's like, it'd be cool to share that with other, like how exactly those are put together for other people, because I'm sure it would help. But at the same time, I'm like, I think I felt more alone in times where we occasionally needed some assistance from like broader, like how to put it, like broader like industry stuff or whatever else, such that part of the idea of putting stuff out there is to like build some community, right? But also to then in return, I don't know, be able to have a sense of safety, right? Like build up your networks, build up your like a cohort, whatever else, who can like in ways that matter really support you, right? And I think some of the things that I experienced, like I don't know, last couple of years, it felt very much more so like the people who could best support me were just the core human being people. There just aren't people on fucking Twitter who can do something that will matter for me, in the case where I'm I saw vomiting into a trash can or whatever. Like it's just I always
see this thing where like indie developers are like, we should find ways to support each other and boost each other. Like we should like get like several hundred indie developers all together, and like whenever one of us releases a game, we all buy it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you aren't winning, Valve is winning in that scenario.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because each of you is just moving money like in a circle. You're just passing it around to each other. And every time you pass it, Valve takes 30% of it. Right. And so you are all just losing money slowly over time, and Valve is just taking all of it. Yeah. So there's all these things where it's like, you can't do stuff like that to really boost each other,
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
I think it does have to be the case
for a bunch, but yeah.
If you're gonna make something to share with other people, right? The only way to do it and feel fine afterwards, honestly, is if you just like to do it, right? Because that's where I'm at. Like I have my personal blog, and I just like to write posts sometimes, and so like I'll just write up something. Mm-hmm. But what I also learned over the years is that I think this is part of the frustration too. Is like, sometimes I'll write something and be like, oh, I know this would be helpful for other people if they could find it, right? The problem is the places where people can find stuff, as we're saying, right, are extremely high churn. So they don't really, they're hard to engage with anyway. But also,
if you want people to find stuff that you make, you would need to like spend a lot of time building up like an audience on fucking Blue Sky or whatever.
Yeah, and I just wanted to write up a blog post for fun, but then it also gets further frustrating, because then once you do share something, if it does actually get any visibility on the places people, if you do the work and be like, all right, here's my Reddit post, here's my tweets, here's my whatever, right? You might get those comments from people who'll be like, oh, this is so helpful, thank you for this, right? But you're gonna get the assholes. And at some point, when you were just trying to do it for fun, Because
Yeah,
even it was a few months ago before the Crashlands 2 launched, I was like, oh, it'd be cool if we like open source some other information about original Crashlands, because we could now, you know. So I put together a public repo that has like, it's about how the Crashlands campaign file works, and includes like a sample parser, so you could like parse out the like, so basically if somebody wanted to use it to say, it also has all the icons and stuff, right? So if someone wanted to use it to like get all the data out of the game to make a wiki for original Crashlands, that's basically what that kind of is, right? Because there are people in our community talking about like, oh, we want to rebuild the Crashlands 1 wiki. And I was like, oh, let me kind of support that this way, right? I was like, oh, this is actually really fun to put together. I remember how we did this and how we constructed these files and stuff. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to write a post on like one of the like gaming subreddits or game dev subreddit or something, right? About like, here's how we designed this thing. Because I just thought it was fun and interesting. But then the combination of responses I got were people accusing me of like trying to sell Crashlands by talking about this, and people being like, this is extremely dumb. You should have done it this other way instead. Right?
Yeah,
I was like, wow, what was this for?
Almost everything that I've like very proudly tried to share in like a social media context, I have been very
people just shit on it.
Just directly. So like easy example,
so discouraged.
Crashlands 2's fucking intro cutscene, which I made by my fucking self, was like an animated short. I never animated something that humongous before. It's like 2.5 minutes, and dare I say it's pretty good. Pretty good. I wanted to share it. I wanted to be like, I made this. I posted it in a couple different, subreddits or whatever else that are for things like that. Got like banned for the PC gaming subreddit because I submitted it twice because I didn't realize the first one went, and then like it went up on like one or two other places and didn't do anything. I was just like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of burnout. You're right. I would say it is burnout, but it's like, I don't know. I kind of the energy I just direct into the stuff that we're doing, but I don't know. Maybe that's where the marketing hole is.
I think it is because you have to just inexhaustibly get attacked nonstop. Like I'm in the like game dev subreddits and in indie gaming, and like I just had a recent experience a couple weeks ago where somebody posted and they were talking about cross-platform stuff. They were like, "What's so technically hard about cross-platform? Like, why don't people do it?" And, so I just kind of like gave a brief summary about how like it's technically not as hard as people think it is. It's more about like the politics of how each platform tries to prevent you from doing it. And oftentimes you have to actually like manually disable cross-platform stuff because the internet's just the internet. And I got downvoted into oblivion, and the only couple of replies I got were things like somebody said something like, literally every word you just said is wrong. I'm like, okay, well, fuck me, I guess. Like, this is my job, and this is something that I've spent 12 years looking into, and blah, blah, blah. But okay, yeah, I guess so.
It is.
Seemed like you got there to help people and ask and answer questions that people have asked, and then you just get shit on.
And again, the experience, it's very different in person. You know what I mean? Like,
nobody does that in person.
No, conferences and stuff have always been very fun to go to. You're just like shooting the shit with people, or even if you give a talk, it's like people aren't just like yelling at you during it. They might ask some questions afterwards that are maybe a little more pointy, but like it feels already.
But they won't stand up and be like, "Why did you waste time putting this together?" Nobody will say shit like that. But they will on the internet.
Yeah, I think it's a combo of like with the pandemic stuff, like not actually going physically into some places to interact with people means that like the entirety of my like kind of broader interaction with not
the game dev
like,
community or
just it's just through the internet. It's
communities.
The internet. Yeah. Unless it's like my neighbors. So it's either like family and neighbors and like, actual like people I know or the internet. And the reality in terms of the sort of like psychological difference of those two experiences is so extreme that, I think frankly, cynicism has taken a very good route on my side in terms of like, is it worth me doing X thing to like put this together for people or no? And it's like, I know, and it sucks because I know I've gotten notes from people about any one of those things they put out where they're like, oh, fuck, this is great. This actually solve this problem for me. So I know it'd be helpful, but also at the same time, it's hard to bring yourself to keep coming back to that place. Yeah,
this is why when I post anything for any purpose now, no comments. So even like I have the Stitch toolkit that's got all kinds of stuff, but it includes
as in you disable comments.
Just disable comments. Well, I got the VS Code extension, right, and I have a video for it for like, oh, here's how to use it, right. I got that posted up, and the first one I was posting that video, the first thing I thought was, I absolutely do not want to hear a fucking word from anybody about what their opinions are about this thing I made for our team that I'm sharing because I think it might be useful for other people.
But that's what I mean.
If one fucking person says one negative thing, I'm going to be so mad. So it's just comments off. Don't need to fucking hear it, you know?
But I think at the same time, it's like the only way you can actually get people to see your stuff, though.
Oh, yeah, nobody saw that video, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Is to put it in places where you cannot. It's like you have to put it on social media. You have to put it on Reddit or whatever. So just so people will fucking see it. And it's like,
well, things get boosted by engagement, too, you know? Yeah. And so, it's getting progressively worse, I think, and it has especially over the past 5 years, where like all these platforms, they only operate on boosting engagement. The thing that drives the most engagement is anger, outrage, being a dick, starting fights, blah blah blah,
or just snark.
So that's
just snarky.
Yeah, so that's just and I think the shitty thing is that even if that's only 5% of the people, they're really loud, and
it might as well be 100%. You know,
they might as well be. You know. And also just in terms of like the emotional impact that it has on the person creating the thing, you know, if 1 out of 20 people commenting just tear it apart, then like it's so disheartening, you know?
So,
and I think people just don't understand that.
Like why, if all you're trying to do is be like, hey, look at this cool thing that might be useful to you, and then get attacked, right? It's like, why do it? And again, so
what am I doing?
So you have to decide that like that sharing it for the sake of sharing it is actually what you're doing, and not care about do people actually see it, which is where I have ended up, right? Is like, but
I think, you know, I think the reality is like you have to do so much in spite of that. For me, from an opportunity cost perspective, it's like, okay, I could spend, and I have in the past, you know, I made a video all about how to use Talon to like control your computer with voice, right? Which is very fun to put together, very fun to share on YouTube, very cool. But like, I don't feel a drive to do those things really anymore, because the reality
that's what I mean is you have to just want to for the sake of doing. Like, you have to enjoy creating that kind of stuff, because
again, it's not because I do enjoy creating it, but if you want people to, if you want anybody to fucking see it, then you have to somehow be okay with what's going to happen when you try.
Yeah, and that's the latter. That's what I'm saying is, I just don't care if people see it. Like that's where I've done.
That's actually where you have to go to.
Yeah, because I truly like, I love writing blog posts. I love sitting down being like, how the fuck does this work? And then writing down how it works, right? With a kind of a reader in mind, but like, I don't want to know what a person thinks.
But I think it's an opportunity cost thing, right? Which for me, it's like, okay, I can either do that or I don't know, hang out with my kids some more for a bit.
Yeah.
Like I have an hour and a half basically before bed every night now, you know, max. So it's like, I'm tired. Do I want to bother like putting something together that I care about a lot? And then
you'd have to like,
or should I just like play video games? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it becomes so dumb. And that's, it bothers me because I'm like, it's true that I would love to put stuff together about how we did all sorts of zany shit with the Crashlands art stuff. I would love to do that. But at the same time, I just don't want to share it because
everywhere that you would post it, you would, like you said, you get banned for people thinking you're promoting stuff. You get attacked by people who think that you did it the wrong way, blah, blah, blah. And like every now and then you'll get a message, like you said, every now and then you get a message from someone be like, hey, this was really cool. Like, thanks for taking the time to put this together. This helped me a lot. You know?
Well, the reason I put the talent voice thing together was because one of the guys, I'm very free with information when I'm just talking to a person. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like another guy I'd been talking to, an artist, had surgery on both of his wrists for carpal tunnel shit like a few months prior. And he was like trying to get back into his stuff and really struggling. And I was like, oh, have you tried this? And I showed him how to do it. He sent me a video like, I don't know, 2 weeks later of his like insane, completely voice commanded workflow he'd done. And it's cool as shit. And he was like, dude, seriously, this has actually saved my like career. Like literally I could just do shit now. And my hands are feeling better. He's like, seriously, he's like, it's a weird thing that I didn't think I would ever even, it's not in my mind as a thing that was possible to do. So thank you for sharing it. But I'm like, so I made the video because I was like, maybe other people are going to need that, you know, medical aspect of things. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Just any of this stuff. I'm just like, that's a hard sell to me nowadays, where it's like, I think maybe that's making cool Crashlands shit.
When you scream into the void screams back.
Actually, even if the void is silent when you scream.
Even if the void is silent, you're like, what the fuck is that for? I'm just going to hang out with real people who enjoy my presence, or like, I don't know, go read a book, practice drawing for fun.
Well, and I think for me, that's also part of what the shift has been too. Is either I make it just for myself because like I just want to, and I don't have some of their opportunity cost thing that's like I'm going to do that instead. I mean, that is still the main reason I don't do stuff, right? But But on occasion, I'm just like, yeah, I just want to do that. That's fine. But the other one is when there is literally a specific person or the team or something where I'm like, I want to share this in a way that I don't have to like, that's a little more constructed and I don't have to like revisit this again. I want to be able to just link to this thing and be like, yeah, this, right? And so for like our internal tools, that's an obvious one, right? But even for other stuff, right? Because I have all these internal things that I've written up for the team about just tons of shit that I'm like, there's these really interesting things. I know how it works. Other people on the team don't. Rather than every time it comes up, be like, oh, by the way, this is how this works. I'll just have it written up once.
This is where this is the shrinking that I'm talking about, right? Because it's like most of our energy.
But then if you make that stuff more public, and that's what I've been trying to do more recently, is like when those things come up, be like, actually, let me put this like on my blog instead, and then and then tell the team about the thing that I just wrote up, so that if they ever give a shit, there it is. And so I'm still writing it for like myself and like specific people, the team, some person I know, some post I saw on the internet where someone was like, how the fuck does this work? I'm like, yeah, how the fuck does that work? And I could figure it out, share it with that person, like to me, like that's the part where I kind of get that bit back where I can be like, yeah, this is still, there's an engagement with people here that is then fun.
Yeah, and then I'm still just grappling with, to be honest with you, because I mean, I understand conceptually what you're saying, but there's one interesting thing. It reminds me, I had this kind of like depressive episode for a bit where I had this question that got kind of felt like it just got stuck to my face in a way that it was a lens through which everything was being viewed, if that makes sense. And it was only after like some conversations with like therapists and stuff where I was like, oh, literally I could it's a dumb question. This weird question I've been asking that I've been like framing my whole life around recently.
What's the question?
It was, I think it was after Levelhead's launch, or maybe close to, or it was before we launched Levelhead, and it was, is this all there is?
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's a dumb fucking question, actually.
Of course, this is all there is. What do you expect?
Well, it's a very particular question where it's like it does a thing to like the shape of how you see, and until you can,
it frames everything as disappointing.
Yeah, and so what I've been grappling with is that I know this is a thing. I want to do it, if that makes sense. But it feels like there's I don't know how much I can just blame the world for it. Yeah, we're just blaming the shape of the world for things versus being like, there's a particular lens about this that I think it's just
both are true, right? Because all the things that we're saying are true. That it's just like it sucks to put yourself out there, even when you're not trying to get any clout, you're not trying to sell something. You're just like, hey, whether it's like you made some cool art, whether it's you learned something that other people probably don't know, because almost nothing is learned exactly one time, right? Because the other thing too is like every time I write a blog post, I'm like, I know people know about this, right? But I'm using myself like working through it to like write a thing about it to like really nail it down in my own brain, right? And so like that's where the value is, right? Because all this stuff is nobody has to care. Yeah, it's totally fine if you don't care.
I understand. I'm just like, I don't.
Yeah, but if you don't care about that, then the rest of the stuff about
you have to have an emotional connection to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that's what makes you want to do it, and it's just like for whatever reason,
you have to want to do it, and then the consequences of having done it have to feel like they were worth it, right?
Yeah.
And so all of that depends
on
heavy
blocker on that. For some
the consequence part.
And of course, the context, what you're trying to share, and how people are going to react to it, and like how all that's, and how much work all of it is, and all that. So there's a lot going on there. And to me, it absolutely makes sense when people are like, "I'm going to opt out of this whole fucking thing," right? It totally makes sense. But it is a bummer because like in our earlier days, we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're like, "Oh yeah, anytime we learn anything, we're going to share it with the world so that everybody gets to know, like how."
Well, it's probably like we gave talks. Like we did a lot of that. Like in person, get on a stage, put together a presentation, answer questions in person, I think just that everything is so digital now that, it does kind of reframe things. And of course, like as a professional putting something together, you always have to take the high road no matter how much people beat up on you, Like you put together a talk or video or whatever, you upload it. And as somebody is like, well, this was worthless, and then you can't reply. How about you go fuck yourself? Like you can't do that, but you want to, because like, why did they take the time to do that?
But they did, and it ruined your day. But it's the gatekeeping bit, because for me, though, what turned me off of talks completely is GDC rejecting all 12 talks I've submitted over the years, right? Yep. On stuff that I knew was good and I knew was interesting. And I also knew from talking to the people that other people wanted to hear about. And I hadn't been able to articulate enough because it's just so much work to boil that shit down into something, consumable, right? And so I was just like sitting on this stuff where I was like, I know this is valuable stuff to tell people about, but it's only to me, this is an example, like to me, it would only be worth the effort of putting that much work into it if I knew that people would actually see it.
Yeah. The gatekeeper's like not sexy enough.
Yeah, the gatekeepers are like, nope. Yeah. And that happened enough times where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fuck this. Like, I'm not going to go engage with this system. Yeah. So I get it. Like there's a lot going on with that whole thing, and
creating things is
fraud.
It's hard.
It's
pretty hard.
Yeah.
But we just got to soldier on and try to find ways to just keep making it happen.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we're way over time. Yeah. So we gotta stop ruminating. We'd like to thank our producers.
We're just out of control.
Yeah. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa Costa, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, the App Store, or Google Play and pick up a copy of Crashlands 2. And if you do have it, give it a review. It helps boost it in the charts and helps us know what you think. We appreciate it. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.